Hi, this is Andrew Trewartha, and this is the third video in the series relating to the NDIS enhancements we're currently putting through in the new Fixus release. Okay, this one is where we're going to get into the detail about the actual case management itself. So what I've done is I've created a case and I've got it to the NDIS plan received state. So I'll just jump into Bernard's case and let's have a look at it. Okay, the NDIS tab has a number of sections. The first section shows you the current status. As I mentioned, they've actually received their plan. And then the idea with each status is that it will then show you the workflow that you will then progress to, sort of the logical next step. If for some reason the next step isn't here, then what you can do, if you've got the right privileges in your role, is actually click on the change status and go to any of the statuses in the list. Now that can also be used if a mistake has been made and you want to go back to the previous status. So anyway, what we'll do is we'll progress them to services provided. So if we jump on that button, we'll go back a few days and say it was done on the 8th. Totally optional to put in comments, and then you just got to save it basically, and that will update them. Now this button over here, the change status, is a little different. As I mentioned, it can take you back a step if you want, if you've accidentally gone too far. Probably the major change it's got that's a little different is if you want to make the actual case inactive, a new field pops up called an inactive reason, and this is required primarily for the monthly transition reporting. So you've then got to pick a reason for why they've become inactive, and a comment then is also mandatory. But I won't do that, I'll cancel that. Okay. Alright, now the next part of the NDIS tab is a new one, the MCL, or the maximum client level. Basically, the first field's the important one, and it's to indicate where they actually resided when they started the application process. So I would hope in most cases they're residing in your region, so you'd pick that first option. So the first two options from memory will typically include them in the MCL count, whereas if they reside in another region when they started the process of moving to the NDIS and moved to your region, then I believe the rule is that they won't be included in your MCL count. That may change, I suppose, but anyway, let's run with resided in this region. What we've also got here, and I assume it won't be used too often, is an exclude from MCL option. So it's basically an opt-out. So if you tick that, it will actually ask you to fill in a comment to that effect as to why they shouldn't just be counted as part of the normal rules. So I haven't got any great examples for why you'd use that, but there might crop up a reason why a specific person shouldn't be in the count. So you can tick that. But we'll run with them actually being in. The last field here, the region, it really is just an option if you want to use it. We do have one of our PIR PHNs. They have multiple regions within their overall the overall geographical area that they look after, and they want to actually be able to specify the region the actual client is residing in, or a sub-region effectively. So at the moment we've just got one in the list. I'd recommend that you actually define one. It might just be the name of your organisation and that's it. It will just default. Okay, so we'll save that. Okay, and just close that down. And status history, really that's just showing you the steps that you've taken the client through. This hasn't changed since the last release. It shows you the dates that occurred, who actually applied the change, and the comments that you may have entered if applicable. So it's just in chronological order. And if I didn't mention, this little arrow over on the right is what you use to actually open and close these windows. So let's keep on going. Assessments. There are, as if you remember back to the one of the previous videos, we actually set up two NDIS assessments to be available: the eligibility information assessment and the questionnaire. The eligibility information is a fairly detailed document. It allows you to put in a fair amount of information relating to why the client is applying, whereas the questionnaire is more straight to the point. So we might just use that one for the moment. Now it's a little bit out of sequence. You'd obviously, if you're going to use this, you'd fill it in a lot earlier than what I am doing now in terms of the status. So just put in the date, who the actual support person is. Yes, they want to be assessed. If they say no, you'd have to enter some more detail. Do you have Australian residency? Well, that's one of the key questions. And are you under 65? It defaults to yes. And then you've just got to answer at least one of these questions, and as soon as I tick that first one, it's telling me that they're eligible to move on to apply. Now, one thing to note in saving that, it's not changing any statuses, it's not doing anything other than being a document you could use to print or create a PDF, and you do that just by clicking next to the edit and exporting to PDF. It's just there to be used as evidence, I suppose, in the application process. Now that's jumped back to the all assessments area where all of your assessments are sitting. So if I go back to NDIS and look at the assessments area, there it is. And again, you can edit it or delete it or export to PDF. Okay, the next area is the documents area. Now, at the moment there aren't any documents, and by rights this area doesn't really do much other than show you documents that have been uploaded with one of the NDIS categories that we've actually defined earlier in the video series. So to actually do that, you just upload documents down at the document sub-tab as per normal. So click on upload documents, go and select your file. I've just created a document earlier. Now the important thing is on this in this spot is next to the document before you actually upload it is actually nominate what the category is. So let's pick one of the ones that we defined earlier and upload it. Now one little trick that we are slowly but surely rectifying is that right now if I go back to the NDIS tab, the document isn't there. What we've got to actually do is refresh the case. So you go up and click on the blue button up the top left and go back to documents, and there it is, and you can view that document. Okay, now the major area is the services area. This is where most of the work will be done. Now you can just add services as you've always done. You don't have to have this new configuration that we've defined. The configuration is just a way of providing budgets and defaults and things like that to hopefully make the adding of services a bit easier, and also give you the ability to look at budgets and balances and things like that. So I might jump in and define some of those. So let's the first thing you effectively do is you add an overall parent configuration. So that's basically, this is the list. You pull down the list of types that you've defined as per video 1 in the admin area. So let's just pick, say, this one, support connection, and as mentioned before, that list is totally up to you. And then you just define a date range that the actual budget is applying to, or the overall service. So let's just, you can type these dates in directly if you want. You don't have to have a specific unit of measure here, so I just tend to set that to annual and 0. And then the important thing here really is just putting in the overall budget. So I will save that. Okay, you can leave it at that if you want, so that any time you logged expenses against that type, you can see how you're going against budget. However, what you can also do, and this is optional, is add these variations. So for the parent type, which is against that support connection NDIS category type, we might want to have, let's say, a visit in hours. Oops, hours. So that might be social visit to client in normal hours. Unit of measure would be in hours, and unit price might be I don't know, $60 an hour. So we'll save that. So now it's created this variant, and you can create any number of these variations, which just allows you to set an actual price and a unit of measure. So we'll add a second one. And it just remembers what I said before. So we'll say out of hours. Okay, this one might be $120 an hour. So we'll save that. Okay, so we've got two variations under our overall parent configuration. So as I said, you can have as many of those as you like, and they'll just list under that parent record. Okay, now back on the services screen, what this is showing you currently is some totals, which you may have noticed. Now, time prior to NDIS is the actual time that's been logged through notes, the case notes screen, before the NDIS came into being. So it's just showing you, like in this example, client's been in our demo system for 2 years, so that might be applicable to you, where you've got long-standing clients, and it's just showing you time you've done prior to the NDIS coming into effect. And then when we start adding time in a minute for the NDIS, you should actually start seeing numbers here, and then it gives a total for time done for this client. Similarly, expenses, as you log them in this screen, should start to increase that total there, the total expenses. We've just entered a $10,000 budget for our single type that we're doing, and it gives you a balance by subtracting expenses from budget. So let's now add a service. Okay, now one little thing I've got to do, and I hopefully will remember to do it, is because I'm doing all of this on the 11th of January, I've actually got to put a date in the future. Now I will review that actually, because I'm not happy about putting dates in the future, but otherwise it may not work as I want it to work for today's example. So let's pick the support connection, and let's say it was a quick visit out of hours. So one little trick, it's defaulted the hours and the hourly rate, but let's say it was just a quick visit and we're only there 10 minutes. Changing the unit of measure to minutes changed the unit cost to $2 per minute. So just so the expenses will actually line up correctly, and we'll just say drop off a form to complete, or something like that. I may be putting things in that are totally not what this will be used for by your organization, but just hopefully the example sort of makes sense. So we'll save that. Okay, so see how now we've got the 10 minutes there as NDIS time, and then our total has been adjusted, $20 expense, and the total balance has gone down to $99.80. So let's add another record. Let's add another service. And as I mentioned before, if for some reason one of these other types that you've defined applies, it will tell you that there's no config for it, but that's not a problem. You can still use it. And it just like you've always done in using the screen, you select the date, you've already picked the type, and then you pick the other figures. So it's not a big dilemma that that a budget isn't in place or a config record isn't in place. So let's pick the one we were using, support connection. It shows that we've actually got $20 already accrued. So once again, I've got to cheat and put the date forward, and we'll say it was an in-hours visit this time. We'll leave it as hours, so it was 2 hours, and select my GST code and put in a reference. Save that. And so that's come up now, and it shows you we've now got 130 minutes as NDIS time. The other totals have increased, total expenses, and our balance has been adjusted. So that is almost. Oh, one other thing I should mention: when we add anything related to NDIS time on this screen, any entries on this screen will result in a notes being added. But if it's time related, it will actually add as time recorded over. So if I go over to the notes screen, you'll see those two entries are just here, and if I actually view them, you'll see that it's actually recorded the actual time that we have entered in that other screen. So just going back to the NDIS tab, if I go ahead and want to delete that entry, it will also delete the note that was on the case note screen, just to keep that time recorded figure in check, particularly for other reports that are in the system already. And one other thing to note is that we will put an edit option here. I know that's been asked for and is a pain that you can't edit it, so we will be doing that. So stay tuned for that one. But as far as I know, that's all I was intending to go through on this screen. So I'll sign off there. Please watch the next video.